Oops, he did it again. He's made another Modcast.
I'm young, healthy, I'm not too stupid.
I hope I die before I get old. Talking about my generation. Not giving up, not getting old.
Don't you think it's strange that love is just an age, but it changes you?
And looking back, it was all worth it. The truth is getting old sucks, but everybody's doing it.
I never thought I would go old. I never thought I would go old.
Too old to cry, too young to die. Things are getting much better. Grow old along with me. Whatever they decree.
Don't know where we'll go, we don't know, so there's still a little more growing up.
You are listening to Mr. Suave's Mod World at mrsuave.com and on modradiouk.net.
Interrupting all programs.
It's a mod world. I've been taking all your scraping. Now I'm shaking off what's breaking down. You've been talking, laugh track mocking. Not so shocking, I'm the walking clown. They unseeming, disbelieving. Now I'm leaving, got to breathe and fly. Wide intention, black dissension. No attention, paid to questions. Why? Here with all the time I spent, bought and sold my guilt.
Hi, I'm Linda from the Chelsea Curve, and you're listening to Mr. Suave's Mod World at MrSuave.com.
Drugs are really for old people anyway. You 75, you've earned the right. Shit, if I was 75, I'd do coke, heroin, everything. I wouldn't give a fuck. I'd be walking down the street, they'd be like, boy, that old man is tripping.
Here he is, the uncomplicated, some would say simple-minded. Let's just say he's one record short of a full jukebox. Here he is, Mr. Suave.
Welcome to the Modcast, kids. I've got a special treat for you coming up this time around. First, starting out the show is a great bit of modish garage rock and roll. Love and All It Kills by Vancouver, BC outfit Star Collector. That was off of their third album, way back in 2003, if you can believe it. That album, Flash Arrows and the Money Shot. Star Collector have been around since the mid-90s, so these vets, they know a thing or two about making records, and they've just made a brand new one. 2 years ago, they put out Game Day, which was a rip-roaring power pop ride with Who and jam-like flourishes. I had lead singer Vic Wayne on the show then to talk about the album, and it was a fun interview. I've got a link up to that on the Modcast page at MrSuave.com, and you can go and check that one out. After doing that, I just had to do it again now that Star Collector has just released their 6th album, Attack, Sustain, Decay, Repeat. And it's a fantastic album, highly recommended. You definitely want to get this one. It's got all the mod-friendly musical elements you would expect, and as always, the band is tight, the production is top-notch. You can hear their 60s influences there, like The Who and the Beatles and the Stones. But also some hints of, 80s new wave and power pop, and Britpop even, I hear in there. Other influences as well, such as Echo and the Bunnymen and Nick Drake. So the album is a bit eclectic, which makes it all the more interesting to listen to. And it's a thinking man's record, dealing with a lot of different things, but always sticking to the theme that plays off of the album title. Stay tuned for a great combo with Vic coming up. I think you're gonna like it. What do Katrina and the Waves have to do with the band's latest album? How did joy, sex, murder, and aging play into it? What's it like to be an old mod? Can you even be an old mod? Vic and I tackle that and more coming up right after this song from Attack, Sustain, Decay, Repeat. This is Running Through the Rain, right here on Mr. Suave's Mod World.
Out, exposed, you're feeling naked now. The thought police are here to suss you out. Or maybe they're just here to mute the sound. But maybe you still hear the running rain. Here come the thunder, here come the wonder, it's running through your veins. Here come the lightning, and though it's frightening, you're running through the rain for one more day. Calling all your treasures out, the beauty of what you're about. For what you leave behind, you can be proud. There's only this one moment here and now. So wash away the fear and let it rain. Here come the thunder, here come the wonder, it's running through your veins. Here come the lightning, and though it's frightening, you're running through the rain for one more day.
Welcome, Vic from Star Collector, joining me now. Glad to have you back on the Modcast.
Thrilled to be back.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, Suave.
This is a good timing for being able to help promote your brand new album. How's that been going?
So far, it's been great. I mean, it's only been a few weeks. The album came out on February 10th and then just on streaming yesterday, which March 3rd. So, but all indications point upwards. Our research and technology department tells us here at Star Collector Industries that all things are going according to plan.
That's always nice to hear. As far as that plan goes, does it include getting out and touring around somewhere, or doing some live shows coming up, or anything like that?
It does indeed. In fact, finally now, I think last time we did this, we were right in the throes of the pandemic, so there was not a lot of live music to be had. But yes, we're actually doing 3 shows next month in April, and not here in Vancouver though. We're actually going to Alberta, the province next to ours, and we're doing 1 show in BC that's sort of on the way, and then 2 shows in Alberta, and then we're coming back, just a short jaunt. But we did this jaunt in the fall. And the clubs were fabulous. Like, honestly, like if we just don't have these sort of mid-sized clubs that are sort of perfectly suited to us in Vancouver right now. We've kind of got, it's a bit of feast and famine. The really big stuff like the Commodore and bigger, Queenie Theater and stuff, that are like 1,500 and up. And then we've got very few that are on the smaller scale or in the mid scale. And then we've got some that are on the really small scale. So it's a bit tricky, but we are just in the process now of booking something here for an album release party in Vancouver. So when I know more about that, I'll certainly let you know, and hopefully you'll make the drive up from Seattle.
I will try and do that. That would be fun. I haven't been to Vancouver in quite a while, so it'd be nice to get up there and see you do your thing on stage.
Happy to host you.
So the new album, is this your 7th full album?
6th
full album. That's a lot of albums.
It's pretty good. I mean, it's no Guided by Voices or anything, but it's for us, it feels pretty good. It's a pretty good accomplishment. Like we took a long break, as you know, between our 4th and 5th album.
Right.
And but since Game Day sort of started percolating from the writing perspective, even before we recorded it and put it out, sort of from that point in 2017 till present day, it's just been a real productive, fruitful time. Like we did that album, we had a few extra songs left over there. did this one, which has 12 songs on it, and we even have, I don't know, like 7 or 8 newer songs since this album, and this album just came out.
Talk about being productive.
I'm not sure they're all winner, winner, chicken dinner, but I think certainly a handful of them are album worthy, and we'll see about the others once we get the band to start playing them. But in terms of productivity, it's been a really, really great time these last few years. Yeah.
When was your first album released?
So our first album was released in 1999.
99.
So previous century.
Yeah.
And the band actually started in 96. So this is going, I mean, it was late 96, but this is, go 26th going on 27th year, I guess, as a band. It's really weird to hear that because there was such a long gap between records.
Right.
But, and, a lesser gap. We did take a little hiatus where we weren't performing and stuff too. But yeah, so the band's been around for a long time.
So how is it different making an album now in 2023, or this was probably made last year actually, but current era versus when you made your first album? Is it easier? Is it, it's got to be a different process for sure.
Totally different. The late 90s and early aughts was definitely still the days of the big studios. And, what that meant is that you would pay X thousands of dollars to go in and do your recording there. But over these last 20 years, home recording has really taken over. And, so now people can make records way cheaper. Big studios are just, crying, I'm sure, because, so what we do is we actually do still go into a big studio to do our drum tracks and maybe some bass and rhythm guitar stuff if we have time. But the goal is to get the drum tracks where we're happy with them. So we do book into a big studio for that. But even then, the cost of going in there now versus 20 years ago is like 10 times less.
Yeah. It's amazing how that has changed. People using things like Audacity or GarageBand. You can carry around on your phone something that took an entire, 200 square foot room to have an engineering board. And you can do all this stuff just yourself from home or wherever you're at, pretty much. It's pretty amazing.
It is. And actually, our drummer, Adrian, is actually our engineer, and he's made a number of records, including the 2 of ours since he's been in the band. And he's just honed his ability to be better and better as an engineer and mixer and master over the time. And so that's kind of just a luck of the draw. When we asked him to join the band, we didn't even know that he was doing that. We just knew that he would be the perfect replacement for Ringo that was in the band for like 20 years. And so that was kind of just, value added. And then more value added that he actually turns out he's got a really good voice. So we now have the third vocalist in there too.
Yeah, that's always nice, right? Little bonus.
It is. But so him having the ability to do it basically from home with his Pro Tools setup, and he's got good speakers and all that, really cuts down on time and cost and all those things that we used to have to pay through the nose for. And the other guys in the band are all quite capable of doing stuff at home as well. They all have home recording systems. I'm the only guy that doesn't. Yeah, I'm the technical goofball moron in the band who, where do I click? But I, not to sell myself too short, because I do have, what I do is I kind of do the overall picture thing, which is, what that mysterious esoteric thing called producer that nobody always, most people don't really know what producers do, but what they do is they shape the overall sonic picture. They are a bit of quality control from an overall perspective. And I just kind of took it on. I've either produced or co-produced all the records we've made, even the stuff Steve and I did before Star Collector. But I think really over the last 2 records, I think I learned enough from a production standpoint to be able to comfortably add that tag to, and feel that it actually means something. But I think as kind of the main songwriter, you do sort of already develop the oral pictures in your mind of how you want the song to sound at the end.
It's like the showrunner.
Yes. And things always come into the picture that surprise you and delight you, or even sometimes where you have to say, yeah, I don't think that's going to work, because the other guys in the band are super creative too. And, things like bass playing, like I can't play bass at all. So having bass players who are phenomenal players, and we have 2 on this record. Wow. My brother Adam and our new fellow Tony, not that new, a year and a half I guess now, but so the 5-headed beast that is currently Star Collector, the 4-piece band that is the 5-headed beast, it lends itself to having these people with with real talent to be able to make the songs even better than maybe I originally pictured. So they'll throw stuff in that I could never have conceived of. Like I can't play lead either. So Steve will do stuff that is beyond my scope, but I've been playing with him for so long that I fully trust and appreciate that whatever he comes up with will be certainly in the ballpark, and then we'll refine it as we go.
Yeah.
So it's so as a I think that's kind of what the role of producer is, at least how I see it, is to have an overall sense of where you want it to be, also an overall sense of how you want the album to sound as an album, as an overall creation, and then of course song flow, track order, and all those things do come into it. So but yeah, it's great fun.
Yeah. I want to get into in a minute a little bit more specific stuff about the songs and the themes and some of what's going on there. But first, since we've been talking about production quality and all this, and you are the sort of the overall producer, it sounds like, do you have a song that you would like to, let's play a song right now for people off the album? Is there one that, sonically you hope people notice, or something you think would be fun, or I don't know, whatever you want?
You know what? If we're for the first one, I'd say let's go with the album opener. There's a reason it's an opener, because I think it's lyrically, but also musically is it's a turbo fuel jet engine.
It is
rock.
Right. It's quite the kickoff.
Yeah, and I just so sure, if we're gonna kick it off, let's do Feel It. Feel It coming on.
All right, let's listen.
I'm gonna break it down for all time. I ain't no deer in the headlights, so transcendental and we still shine. It's all or nothing when you realize I'm gonna crank it up for my time. There ain't no giving up on what's mine. Cross-continental and we stone jive. It's all or nothing but we're alive. And I feel it coming, feel it coming, feel it coming on. And I feel it coming, feel it coming, feel it coming on. Yeah, feel it coming, feel it coming, feel it coming on. I'm gonna play it out a long time. I ain't no raindrop in the street lights. A touch sentimental, but I'll be fine. I'm all or nothing by design. And I feel it coming, feel it coming, feel it coming on. And I feel it coming, feel it coming, feel it coming on. Yeah, feel it coming, feel it coming, feel it
this were a dictatorship, it'd be a heck of a lot easier. Just so long as I'm the dictator.
You're listening to Mr. Suave's Mod World at MrSuave.com, celebrating mod-influenced music, including soul, ska, garage, power pop, punk, Britpop, acid jazz, lounge, easy listening, and more.
All right, I am here with Vic from Star Collector talking about your brand new album. And the album title, Attack, Sustain, Decay, Repeat. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Where did that title come from? That's interesting.
Well, this would be a great, appropriate place to talk about it because this is the Modcast. And as you know me and I know you, we're both, monster fans of the Jam.
Yeah.
In fact, folks out in Radio Line can't see it, but I'm wearing my Jam shirt with the Start single on it for this interview because it was perfectly appropriate. So I bring that up because the initial impetus for the title came from me seeing Paul Weller, I think it's an album called Wake Up the Nation.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a close-up of knobs that say Attack and I think Decay. And I kind of started mulling on that and thinking that, okay, so there's kind of two different ways that I saw it. So Attack, Sustain, Decay, Repeat. From a musical standpoint, the way that I saw that was it was a natural progression of not only how music comes across and songs come across, hopefully, if you like them, but also the whole cycle of making records, which is you come out, the stuff comes out, you're hoping that it's going to just grab people. We were just talking just before you played Feel It coming on about the initial jolt of how that song comes in. Well, it's kind of, you could take that same philosophy towards what I'm talking about here. And that is you want the initial attack to be powerful and grab people. And then you're trying to sustain it because, in our world, things are disposable. And then eventually it's going to decay to some point, and then, but the hope is that you can then just repeat the cycle. And when I was thinking about the Game Day cycle into the Attack Sustain cycle, that also kind of came into my mind too, that was kind of the cycle. Those 2 years that Game Day was there, it came out of the gates, much to our surprise and being thrilled, and did really well in our, let's not overstate the case, but in our circles, which are much smaller than the, Taylor Swift circles. But and then it sustained itself way longer than we initially. I think Steve and I, when we had our first kind of plan about how long we were hoping to sort of push it, was I think 3 or 4 months to keep it out there. And I think the 6th video for Green Eyes came out 14 months after the release.
Wow.
And we were still getting played. And there was even, I think we were even on a few best of 22 lists, even though the album came out in 21, because the album carried into the year,
right.
which was really cool. So there was that part of Attack Sustain in terms of a musical approach that I liked. But I also saw it from a slightly more philosophical, esoteric life kind of thing about the way that, well, not everybody, I won't speak for other people, but the way that I sort of see how I do things in my life and how I'd like to be, which is try to do things to the very best of your ability, whether it's music or sports or being a dad or whatever it is. And then you hope to kind of sustain the good part of that stuff, and in life, things are always going to fall off at some point, but you hope to repeat them again. So I kind of, it was kind of both. It was, like, I don't want to be too ethereal about it all, but I kind of had that in my mind too. So I thought, well, and I guess lastly, which is the shallowest of explanations, it's just a cool sounding title that most people like yourself and others have already said, wow, that's kind of interesting. What did you mean by that?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a 3-pronged pitchfork.
So obviously I see the title, but I jumped right into the album the first time I listened to it without thinking too much about it. And it took me a while of listening to the album. And then it started to dawn me that it's thematic. The album sort of progresses that way a little bit itself, but the themes in the songs, at least that I was interpreting them, seem that way. And it's kind of like a life cycle. We all live that way. You start out young and attack things, and you're going, and then you're sustaining that, and then there's the inevitable. So my thought is a lot of this album is a little bit more nostalgic in some ways, maybe. Not the nostalgia of The Jam or something like that, but of a life lived. And I'm thinking, this album could not have been written by somebody who's 23 or 24 years old. It's a lot of experience went into it. And it made me think as I was listening to it. And a lot of albums don't do that. So I really appreciated that along with the music. I've really been digging it quite a bit.
Well, thanks, Rob. I appreciate that. And you think you nailed it right on the head. Most of those songs couldn't come out of someone that hasn't had the lived experience, because there's, yes, there's songs about, youthful energy and joy and creative spirit, like Feel It Coming On, for instance. And then there's songs that are, like one of the other ones, Beat It to Death, is much more kind of tongue in cheek. And it's kind of a double entendre between the love of hooky songs.
Yeah.
In particular, which is kind of cool. In particular, the song "Do You Want Crying" by Katrina and the Waves. That song
really
influenced me starting to write the words for this song, because it's just so damn catchy in in its simplicity. But songs that repeat their hooks to the point where they just won't get out of your brain. So that was that. But I also, of course, love to be able to take things a little deeper. So that song also, if you can read the whole song, that it's about sex too.
Yeah.
But those are songs that someone that's 23 or 24 could probably envision to some degree. But then you're right. There's songs there about aging. There's songs about looking back to different stages of life from the perspective of someone who's older. And there's songs about, anxiety. There's songs of anger to do with, people that may have wronged you. There's even a song about murder, which is a real life scenario, which is pretty dark. But yeah, it kind of runs the whole gamut. And I know when I was doing a print Q&A, and one of the questions was kind of similar to what you just asked me. And I think, the way I tried to answer it is that these songs as a whole certainly are not straight up power pop or straight up mod music. It's just not. We've tried to expand, to take all the influences of the band, all the things that we love about various styles of music, but still have them try to sound like Star Collector. And when you're talking of themes of, joy and sex and revenge and fear, and murder, aging, celebrity excess, I mean, there's a whole lot of different things that are tackled within the lyrical content. And I just think that for me as a lyricist and for the band musically, the only conscious decision we made was not to shy away from exploring other tangents that Star Collector could explore.
Yeah. Good for you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things in there. And it's funny you say, you were expanding beyond just the mod sound. As you know, the mod sound, it's practically everything. It really, listen to soul music and power pop and punk rock and all these different things, and various iterations of all those things down through the years, and it's like so much. And I was talking with a friend of mine recently. I was saying, it's kind of unfair to be a mod because you get to like so many different things and appreciate all this stuff and not be sort of pigeonholed into, although when you're younger, I think you can be, but when you're older, you guys get to explore. There's some stuff in there that's kind of Stonesy sounding. There's just a lot of different things going on, which is really enjoyable when you're listening. And I listen a lot in background and just sort of as I'm working and doing stuff. I really appreciate that, because then I go, wait, what was that?
Well, yeah, and thank you very much, for recognizing that too, that it's that it is a bit more expansive, and that the influences that come into it are going. There's no question that the whole, I'll never be able to, and I would never want to shed my love for Townsend and Lennon and Weller. These are like my main, Ray Davies. These are my main songwriting heroes. Always have been, always will be. I'm still a huge fan of Julian Cope and Echo and the Bunnymen and that kind of thing, which seeps into this record. And, there's an acoustic song that could be like Nick Drake. And those are not power pop tangents, right?
No.
And, and there's one that's like a total 70s arena rocker. Sloan might do it and people would go, oh, yeah, that's kind of power pop. And maybe some people would hear that song and say that, but it's, would a true mod say that song, probably not, but it doesn't matter. Because, at least to us, it doesn't matter, because we're trying to, like I said, with this record, it wasn't conscious. It just really happened as the songs came out. that, oh, well, that song really kind of is pushing off in this direction that's further away from what we might have done in past records. But then we kind of said, well, let's just go with it.
Yeah.
And, so if the song needed to be 6.5 minutes long, which again, kind of deviates from
right
odd and power pop, prototypical stuff, we just said, well, that's how it's going to be. It
right.
needs the, like there's a song that is like 6.5 minutes long. And I think the guitar whole section at the end, the tail, is probably like 2+ minutes of music. And it's basically Steve, the daunting task of Steve having to solo over a passage that long. It's a heavy song and it's a psychedelic type song.
Yeah.
So Steve had to find that perfect sweet spot between melody that keeps you interested and chaos and cacophony that takes the song to its height at the end where it needs to be. And I guess so that really just leads me to the fact that when you have really, really great musicians, not myself not being one of them, but as a songwriter, that's kind of like, what could be cooler than having guys that can actually accomplish that kind of stuff and do it in such a way with such verve and panache that it's hard to not love it, like for me. So that's really.
So when that song started out, We Can't Take a Joke, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you think this is going to be a long song? This is going to be really long. So you kind of had an inkling of that, or did the songs just sort of take on a life of their own sometimes and write themselves as you're playing?
They do. For that particular one, yes, I was quite conscious that it needed to be a longer thing. The minute I came up with the guitar riff that opens the song, I knew that it was going to have this psychedelic bent to it. And then when I hit upon the theme and the overall structure and arrangement, I knew that it needed to be what it needed to be. So, there was a time when Adrian, while we were working on it, said, should we fade this sooner? Should we chop off 45 seconds to make it, and I was like, nope, we're not doing that. This is how that song needs to be. So that's really kind of where our headspace was at. We still, that sounds very much like Star Collector, but it's a bit of a progression by expansion.
Well, I liked how the album progressed and expanded throughout. You've got a lot of, as we mentioned, lived experiences in there and melancholy and maybe some regrets. I don't know. But at the end, you kind of wrap it up with, I thought was a more of an upbeat moment, brings it back full cycle, sort of. You end with a song that's kind of an attack, and doesn't leave you in decay. It's repeat. So, I mean, I was really digging it when I figured that out.
Yeah. And you hit again, you totally nailed it. That is exactly right. The opening of Feel It Coming On has this absolute, joy of creativity, joy of life kind of feeling about it. And the lyrics, though introspective, are also it's really a song about the joy of creating that song, which I love the circular logic in that. It's just like chicken and the egg. You just keep going around. But it's also like what you said, the last song, Don't Have to Fold, is a song that has that same joy about it. And it talks about the same joy about appreciating things, but it's talking about it from a place of being older.
Yeah.
So it's a song about aging, but aging in a way where you're still loving what you're doing. So it is a perfect circle. And I will be honest that when that song came about, it wasn't necessarily intended to be the last song on the record. And in fact, I wrote that song in an hour, start to finish.
Wow. And
I never write that quickly. And I was sitting on my couch one night, wrote the whole thing, maybe changed 2 or 3 lines after that. But literally it came all in one really, really short bit of time. And I remember thinking to myself, this can't be that good if I wrote it that quickly. So I did second guess myself on it, but it just kept coming back to my head over the next couple of weeks. I just start humming it and I'd start thinking about it. And I was like, you know what? That's a signal to me that it's worth pursuing. So I showed it to the band. And again, this is the opposite end of the spectrum. It's 2 minutes long.
Yeah.
And
short.
We never do stuff that short. I mean, our normal wheelhouse would be like 3:30, 3:45, right? If you average things out. So we have If We Can't Take a Joke and the song 19 Dream, which are in the 6-minute realm. And then we got Don't Have to Fold, that's like 2 minutes. But it just seemed to be the perfect circle and the band loved it. And, so it really did. end up, you're right, it ended up being the perfect closer thematically for the reasons I said, but also for the title of the album. It suits it perfectly. So yeah, good observation.
It's funny thinking about being old as mods, because when we were kids, you never think about being old, really. You think of other people being old, and those
right.
old people over there, and they're usually like 30, and you're
That's right. That's right.
And I am just struck by, they always talk about mod as a youth culture, a subculture of youth, and it's a young thing, the young idea. Can you be an old mod?
I don't see why not. I mean, I think the original energy, you're right, does come from youth, and that's what started it, and that's probably where it best exists. But to me, it's more than just. It's more. To me, it's also about music. There's a fashion. I mean, Paul Weller is still like the mod father, and he's in his mid-60s now.
Right.
And look, the way he dresses and wears his hair and all. I mean, like, he's still the mod father, but he's in his 60s. So
right.
To me, it's more than that. I think maybe when I was 19 and had my parka and my jam buttons and the whole thing, I would have agreed with what you said, and I would have thought, yeah, 30 sounds pretty freaking old, man. But from place of, a number of years after that, I look at it, and to me, it's more just about, do I love the music? Do I like the fashion? And so that's enough for me. How about you?
Yeah, it's interesting because, well, I consider myself a mod, and I have friends who started out in the mod scene with me, and they would say, "Oh, I'm not a mod. I stopped being a mod in 1989, or I aged out or something." And I'm looking at these people and I'm thinking, I see the clothes you're wearing and what you're listening to and the life you're living. And I'm thinking, you're such a mod. You just don't want to admit it, or I don't know what that is. But it's interesting because Paul Weller, you're right. And he's embraced it even more so as he's gotten older. And yet there are people like Pete Townsend who talk about it, but he talks about it in almost a past tense. He would probably say, I'm not a mod anymore, but obviously, in the beginning. So it's just interesting how that is. Of course, you can be an old mod. It is a young thing. And I'm always worried that, the next generation won't pick up the torch and run with it, but they do somehow, some way. And there are a lot of younger people. I mean, Sharp Class, Oliver Orton, and those guys, my gosh, they're the modest thing I've ever seen. Can blow your doors off.
Yeah.
And they're pretty young. So there's hope
my first band
for it to keep going.
3-piece, right? They're a 3-piece. Yeah, just kicking it out straight up. And I love it too. And I admire, like you said, there's still people willing to pick that torch up. And so like I said, for me, that's still the main thrust of, like if I'm trying to judge what we do against anything else, and I don't often do that, I still try to write songs in a bubble, and the band does. But for me, the litmus test, the quality litmus test, is always Weller, Townsend, Lennon, the Bunnymen, like artists that I have huge respect for in terms of their songwriting. It's the songwriting part. And if I can feel that this wouldn't be embarrassing playing a song for Paul Weller, then I feel like I've done my own due diligence as a lyric writer in particular, more so than the music. But the band is varied. There's a lot of different influences that come into what we do, and I guess back to this record, which is, that's what I'm so proud about it, is that I still think people identify it, that it sounds like us, but there's songs on there that nobody would say that's a mod song.
Right, but it could be enjoyed by mods and played by mods.
Yeah, I would hope so, because if you listen to stuff like Butterfly Collector by The Jam, right, or a lot of Lennon's stuff, I mean, they're heavy, they're moody. It's not just about pumping out the 3-chord high energy pop thing, right? Which is what most people associate with mod. But and Townsend was writing about, oh my goodness, so much life stuff. So those are the guys that I look to, more as heroes because of the quality of the writing.
So you said you've already got songs that are written for your next album, maybe?
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves too yet, but yeah, we do. Steve and I demoed 3 already, or 4 that I've got written myself that I haven't really shown to anybody yet. One that I wrote with my brother Adam again. But yeah, we got a fistful
Nice.
that we'll get to. But I think that if we follow this whole cycle that we've already been discussing, we'll probably try to build up more songs over the year, and then maybe the very end of the year we'll start the cycle again where we start recording and stuff. So right now we're just this still feels really fresh. It was actually finished in November, but just getting it out there now to the public makes it feel pretty fresh, and we're pretty excited about
I
it.
remember talking to an author, and they were telling me, this was a number of years ago, that you publish a book, you do all this work to publish a book, to write a book and put it out there, and then he said the real work starts, kind of like music, of promoting that, make sure people know about it. And he said in his mind, his books are always new because there's 7.5 billion people who've never read it or heard of it, and so it's always new to somebody. But easily for 18 to 24 months, a book, an album, a single, whatever, is pretty new to a large audience of people who are likely to hear about it. But I love finding things a year and a half down the road and like, well, how did I not know about this? But your stuff will be new for a while, so you don't have to push yourself, I guess is the point. You can kind of let those songs percolate and prepare themselves.
I agree with you too, and it's a matter of having a little bit of staying power from the hype machine perspective, I think, which is that not to feel like you've blown your wad
Right.
in the first month, and then because there are some really good records that I've seen come out that do that. They have this big interest and lots of press and stuff, and then 2 months later they've just gone, and that's always possible that it could happen. But it wasn't our experience with Game Day, because one of the key things for us was we had Steve able to make videos. And
yes.
The videos were always a new reason to get people interested again, to come back to the record.
Yeah.
And he's just become, he did a fabulous video for Feel It Coming On.
Yes.
And we're currently working on the second one, which maybe hopefully will get out by April,
right,
beginning of April. And that really did help, because every 2 to 3 months you have a new reason for people to revisit it.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully they tell 2 friends and they tell 2 friends and they go, oh yeah, I kind of heard this song called The Silent Type, which I really liked, off this band I've never heard of called Star Collector from Canada, of all places. You should check it out. And then suddenly you see someone buying the album on Bandcamp, right, that you have no idea who they are, and and you go, oh well, maybe that came out of us just releasing the video for Silent Type. Like, you just never know. And if you really believe in all the songs, and that's the other thing, is some people have like 1 or 2 key songs and the rest are just kind of album songs. We, on the last one, we had lots. In fact, if time had allowed, Steve might have done videos for all 10 songs.
You did a bunch.
We would have been more than happy.
That's a lot.
We did 6. It is, and a few of the songs that are certain people's favorites didn't even get that treatment. Like, there's a song called "Stranger Renting Space in My Head" that probably should have had a video. It's a pretty decent song, and a lot of people really like it. But we just kind of, by the time we did Green Eyes, we were so deep into this record that we decided to put our energy into creating the new record. But those videos are out there on our YouTube channel, and I thrilled when people will subscribe to it. And because every that, I don't know if you've seen that meme going around that has to do with musicians and also with shows. It's like every little click really does matter. People don't think it's a big deal to like your video or to like your post. All those little things, it's amazing how they add up.
That's why I've been doing the Modcast, is to share good music. And I know that sometimes I put something out and I'm like, well, most of the people that listen to this have probably already heard all this stuff. But then I remember, or I hear from somebody, they're like, oh, I learned about this band or this song from, that episode 2 years ago. And I'm like, wow, all right. So it is, like I said, it's always new to somebody, so, and video is an interesting thing. Some people just need a visual. Not everybody can just listen. A lot of people really want to see things and be engaged visually. And I think about when MTV came out and videos were just getting started, Madness, those guys made a video for every single song. And for some songs, I think, that were never on an album. I mean, they made so many videos, and it's amazing. But I think it is part of what made them vaulted them into a level that they might not have achieved without it. But it's so many videos.
Yeah, sure. I mean, and they were
Yeah.
quite visual, right? Like they had their thing, and they were able to get that
Yeah.
across on video. And that's a big part of it, is being able, if you're going to make a video, you want to showcase the band in a way that makes you think, okay, so if I saw these guys live,
Mhm.
this is what I would get. You know, whether it's Madness or whether it's Aerosmith or whether it's us, like all over the map. If the video gives you the visual, like you said, of what you're going to get, and for when I think about the game day stuff, the pandemic forced people, like we couldn't play live, we couldn't even get out.
Had to make a video.
So videos were the perfect vehicle for people that would say, "Are you guys playing?" No, we can't. There's nowhere to play. Everyone's closed. But we could use the videos as a way to say, well, if you watch this, you kind of get a pretty good idea of what we're like as a performance act and our visual style. And of course, you tie it to the song. So, to me, videos can be very good tools, and they certainly prove to be on game day. And Steve's just getting better at it. He does more research on how to make them better, and he's willing to put in the time. And
you're lucky to have someone like that, because when you don't have that, obviously you either have to go pay for it, which is often an obstacle that can't be overcome. And having that sort of in-house, talent is fantastic and gives you this ability to create a lot of videos that so many bands don't really have, or they create videos that are pretty not worth watching.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're right. Lyric videos where they just run the lyric over top, or really, really low budget looking kind of things where they're,
and you can ruin a good song with a poor video.
And I agree with that too, because I think people actually feel that they have to do videos if they're but if they do them poorly, it has the opposite effect. So, in the same way that we try to have our own internal quality control over the songwriting and the arranging and the production, with the videos, we're also trying to really showcase the band in the most positive way possible that also has the energy of the song. And that could be a high energy thing like Feel It Coming On. It could be something like Super Zero Blues, which was a much darker kind of, so we did most of it in black and white. And it really does, it really can be a helpful tool if done well. And Steve's, he's just getting better at it. And, I'm still involved in the discussion of certain shots and certain ideas, but it really is his baby. And you're right. To have Adrian be able to do all the engineering, to have an in-house producer, quote unquote, to have a guy that can make videos and do artwork. I mean, it is sort of like a cottage industry where we don't have to rely on people outside of the band for things that would cost us a lot of money and take a lot of time. We can just do it within. So cool. It's pretty cool.
Well, I will put up some of the videos on the Modcast homepage at mrsuave.com for this episode, the new one for Feel It Coming On. And I can also help push the other ones out when they arrive down the road. But yeah, I will definitely put those up there. I try to do a bonus set of songs with each podcast because I cannot fit everything I want to play into one show. And I don't want it to be, 2.5 hours of, I don't know. I just don't want it to be that long.
I don't want it to be 2.5 hours of some guy from Canada blathering.
No. This is 2.5 hours I'm enjoying. It's not 2.5 hours at all, but
not yet.
Not yet. We're working on it.
We'll get there.
But I do like to throw up bonus videos and things on the pages. So I will do that. Definitely let people know about it. Is there one final song from this album, or maybe even a past album? I don't know. Is there something you'd like to leave people with? We can sort of fade away with a really good track here.
Well, boy, that's tough because there's I guess we should let's do Beat It to Death.
Okay. We'll end with a banger.
That's the one.
These are all good songs, and I have been enjoying them all in different ways. So I'm appreciating that a lot. And I think I told you this before, that I'm out walking my dogs listening to my phone, on shuffle, and a song comes on. I'm like, well, that's Star Collector. And I may not know the song because it might be from one of your older albums. Like I don't know it right away, but I definitely do know that that's you guys. And I'm always happy to hear it. Even the dogs seem to walk better when that happens.
It is very humbling that you took the time to go back to listen to our pre-game day stuff, because we did have 4 albums worth of stuff that we put the same level of care and time and, you know, everything that we said about these last 2 records took place for those records. You know, I put the same level of care into the lyrics. The band really tried to make them the best they could be. But because they're a bit older, some people just don't always go back to see what they're about. And I really appreciated that about you, that you actually took the time to go back and say, yeah, I'd like to listen to their older stuff. And I remember, I think one of the things you said right on the hop of our last one was, you guys are just a couple hours away from me and you've been around for 20 years. How come I've never heard of you? Well, there you go. That's just bad promotion on our part. But nonetheless, the fact that you took the time to do that is a real feel good for us, because those records still matter to us. We still play songs from those records, and I'm still really proud of those records, because, you know, each record is kind of like a moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
And when people say, what's your favorite album that you've done, or what's your favorite song, I don't really like to answer those questions, because they all were important and mattered, and the subject matter was important at the time of making it. And it's just kind of like that's that moment in time in 1999, and Game Day is that moment in time in 2021, and whatever surrounded that. And now Attack Sustain is 2023's, you know, not for want of too grandiose a word, but it's like, that's our statement for this moment in time.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's pretty cool to be able to say, geez, we have 6 records out now, but it's doubly cool when people go back to experience those old ones and say, you know, I really like that song number 4 off your 3rd album or whatever.
Yeah.
You're like, man, cool. Thanks for taking the time.
I enjoy listening to all your stuff. It's funny because most musicians will say, oh, I don't have a favorite song. And that's true. So I don't ask people, what's your favorite song from that album? I ask them, like I was going to ask you for wrapping up the show, is there a song right now in just this moment that comes to mind for whatever reason, or something you just like to leave people with? You said Beat It to Death, and so we can finish with something, take people out on a high note, sort of. I appreciate your taking the time.
Anytime. So it's truly my pleasure. Just, you know, one of my brothers, the one that's not playing with us, not Adam, my brother Paul, when we first got played on the Modcast, he said, I've been listening to that show for years. It's so cool you guys were on. So, you know, he lives down in California, and I was like, yeah, Rob's a really good guy. But there you go. So, like you said earlier, you never know what effect you have when you're playing, when you're DJing a show. And I guess it's kind of true for musicians too. You just never quite know, you know, maybe it's no effect at all, but if it is, then, you know, that it sort of helps make that creative process just that little bit sweeter. So thanks so much for having me on.
Star Collector has made things a lot sweeter for all of us. So I appreciate your being here. And everybody can head over to the Modcast homepage at mrsuave.com. I will have videos up there and a link to your Bandcamp page. And do dig into the back catalog. It'll be worth it for the listeners. I guarantee it. Thanks a lot, Vic.
Thank you.
All right. Closing things off with Beat It to Death off of Star Collector's brand new album, Attack, Sustain, Decay, Repeat. I'm Mr. Suave. Thanks for listening.
Hit me with that hook, girl. stereo near you. 'Cause she